So when I was younger, I was a big fan of this funk band called Chic, and they had this big hit called Good Times. And in this song, you have one typical bass line that has been redo again and again after that, which goes basically it goes this way. So every time as a kid when I was listening to this song, I was imagining a little guy going up and down stairs as the bass does on the song. So when I received this song from Daft Punk all around the world, when I received this song from Daft Punk all around the world,
that's okay.
So when I received the Daft Punk song, I noticed that the bass was kind of in this way, so I said to myself, it is the ultimate way the only way for me to do this song is to use this idea of this little guy, and I use it, and I find a way to use this kind of idea concerning all the instruments. So I will try to show you how it goes with the other instruments. So in all around the world, you have 5 instruments. You have the bass, you have the drum box, you have the guitar, you have the disco keyboard, and then you have the vocoder. So for each instrument, I had to find a character that corresponds the best to the nature of the sound. So for the bass, it came naturally as I said, they were doing a lot of physical stuff, so it has to be physical. So there are those athletes with a big body and a little head. Because they just do physical stuff and they have not a big brain. So there are the drum box, which are doing a mechanical stuff, but I was thinking, what could we create that illustrate perfectly the rhythm? So I was thinking of this kind of weird musician that has so many aesthetical surgery, plastic surgery, that now it becomes a mummy. So here are the mummy. For the guitar, it looks like to me an itching sound like that. So I imagine a skeleton. The skeleton is something that looks very itchy to me. For the keyboard, it sounds to me like it's very disco. The disco to me, disco period at the end of the 70s was a little bit like the 20s revival. So imagine those little disco girls, and as well it's a feminine element of the song. So here, the disco girls, so they are very sexy and full of glitter. And then we finish with the vocoder, which is one of the most important elements of the song, which obviously is the sound of a robot. So we created this funny little robot. So now we have the 5 elements of the song, and we have 4 dancers for each element. So we will see how they dance together. So I started to put the routine, to create the routine of the bass player, which, as I said, is like a stair. So we have 3 big steps on the left and 7 little steps on the right. As the song goes, dum dum dum, to the dum dum dum, to the dum dum dum, to dum 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 dum. Here, so here I put my bass player, my athlete with a little brain. And then after that you have the drum box, which are the mummy, which are the center of the song. So I put them in the center of the song, of the stage. Here they are. Then after that, you can hear the guitar coming in. So the guitar, I put them here. They are the skeleton. 4, here they are. So the guitar is doing, every time it's doing 4 times the same gimmick. So it's why I have them dancing 1 time here, then doing the stuff, then 2nd time here, the second time here, and second time here. It's kind of an adaptation of the Macarena. You know the dance of the Macarena?
Oh, Macarena.
Yeah, it's an adaptation of the modern adaptation of the Macarena. So they do 4 times the same stuff, each time different orientation. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have the disco girl that are kind of balancing the bass player. The disco girl has a very feminine element, as the bass player, as the athlete, as a very masculine. So they are always going up the stair and provoking the bass player. So here they are, the disco sexy girls.
Oh, provoking the men.
Yes, they go up and provoke them. As if you listen to the song in the beginning, you hear 2 different melodies. The bass is playing something on the disco girl, the keyboard is playing something different. And when they reach on the top, when it goes tap, 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 they all do the same. So here on the stage, they go up symmetrically, and then when they reach the top, they all go together down the stairs. This way. And then they start again. And here we have to put a little ladder for them to come back and do their stuff again. So on the last element, maybe the most important of the song is the vocoder. So I put the robot here. And this kind of surface that reminds vinyl from a record. And every time you hear the sound of the vocoder, they go on and they turn always the same time, so always the same direction, and when you don't hear the sound, they stop. So here are all the elements, and every time. So basically, we didn't have to intercut with any other stuff because it was telling a little story. You start with the bass, then you have the drum, then you have the keyboard, then you have the guitar, then you have the robot, and the song is built this way. First, you play all the different tracks, you add them to create all the sounds. Then, just before you get bored, the pace, the rhythm gets changed. And for instance, you have the bass that stops, and then just the robot turning, so everybody stops, and then the robots are turning. Then next part, everybody stops, and this is solo, the bass solo. So everybody stops, but the bass player that just do the kind of hip hop moves. And sometimes everybody stop and start all together, and there is a new choreography. Like when the song really fall all together, you have everybody dancing in the same time.
Cool. Actually, that is so cool. That's really good the way you explain it. That was a good one.